My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war.
On March 19, 2003, American forces entered Iraq and began conducting military operations to disarm Iraq of its weapons of mass destruction. This war took the lives of over 150,000 people and sparked the growth of terrorist groups across the Middle East. The true motives of the war and if weapons of mass destruction even existed in Iraq is fiercely debated. What is known is that in the days leading up to the invasion of Iraq, the leader of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, and his son committed the largest bank heist in the world against the people of Iraq. A storm was brewing. President George Bush had just issued Saddam and his sons a 48-hour ultimatum to leave Iraq or face war. Saddam and his sons did not comply with this order. 2 days later, America would begin to unleash a fury of missile strikes followed by a full-scale invasion of over 250,000 US and British troops. Saddam, sensing that his regime's days were numbered, sent his second son, Qusay Hussein, head of Iraqi security forces, and his personal assistant, Abd al-Hamid Mahoud, to the Central Bank of Iraq. Qusay entered the bank that was built like a fortress as it was constructed entirely of concrete with only a few windows and a single entrance. Once inside, he handed over a handwritten note to the bank manager that said they needed to withdraw 900 million in US dollars and 100 million in euros as they needed to ensure the money did not fall into foreign hands with the invasion looming. The bank managers had no choice but to release the cash as the note was signed by Saddam himself. Quote, "When you get an order from Saddam Hussein, you do not discuss it," an anonymous Iraqi official with insider information of the heist told the New York Times. Over the next 5 hours, the bank staff and Qusay's men loaded 3 large trucks with metal boxes filled with $100 bills as onlookers watched the trucks drive away into the early morning. The largest heist had just been perfectly executed without guns or explosives or the use of force. Just a handwritten note from the man himself. US intelligence was alerted to the heist as it was over a quarter of the country's cash reserve and feared that it would be used to fund the insurgency. The hunt for the cash began. When executing a raid on one of Saddam's palaces, US soldiers noticed a hole in one of the walls. Breaking down the wall, they discovered 164 metal containers. Unsure of what could be inside of them, they approached with caution. To the soldiers' surprise, each container contained $4 million in US $100 bills. The entire stash was $660 million. Once the news of the money being discovered made it back home, John Taylor of the U.S. Treasury Department for International Affairs advocated for the money to be returned to the central bank as it was the people's money. Ultimately, the United States decided to create the Coalition Provisional Authority and have the money distributed to the military commanders to be used under their order. But not all of this money would make it to its intended destination. With the hundreds of millions of dollars being flown around Iraq, some U.S. soldiers couldn't resist. Millions of dollars were disappearing and being stashed by the troops or mailed home, eagerly awaiting for their return, such as in the case of Major Mark Richard Fuller. Fuller was working in Iraq as a pilot, delivering large sums of cash from the Coalition Provisional Authority. Once Fuller completed his contract and returned home, he began to deposit large quantities of $100 bills across different banks and accounts, totaling 91 transactions, all less than $10K. This got the attention of authorities as all of these brand new $100 bills were not in circulation yet. Court documents stated that while Fuller was in Iraq, he mailed home 20 packages to his wife. The courts could not prove that Fuller stole the money, but charged him with 2 counts of structuring transaction to avoid the $10,000 sum requiring banks to report the deposit to the government. Turning himself in, he struck a plea deal and was sentenced to pay $300,000 in fines and serve 1 year in jail. It is believed that Fuller stole an estimated $440,000. But the question remained, if they only found $650 million, what happened to the remaining cash? Unfortunately, no one knows. It is speculated that the remaining money was stolen by the US troops, as over the course of 4 years, 35 US soldiers were convicted of stealing funds from the Coalition Provisional Authority. Soldiers weren't the only ones stealing, as the Pentagon admitted that it lost $100 million of the money. The Special Inspector General's office said the money was lost due to a records management error. What would you do if you were a soldier in Iraq fighting a war with questionable motives and risking your life and stumbled upon millions of dollars?